introduce Mark Henry from Foundations for Wealth.
Thank you all. So I'm going to jump straight in and first of all just talk a bit about me and a bit about my business, Foundations for Wealth. So as Natalie touched on, I've been a financial planner for 13 years. 9.5 of those years was spent as a senior advisor with Westpac, and I started Foundations for Wealth in July 2014. So Foundations for Wealth is built on the premise that we can't achieve anything without first laying strong foundations. And I think that's relative to anything we do in life. I'm sure Mark Kalea will attest to that with putting down a concrete slab. But we get to know, at Foundations for Wealth, we get to know and understand your goals, your risk tolerance, and ultimately provide you advice that puts you at the centre of everything that we do. So we're not just there to flog you a product or do something that's in our best interest. A lot of people ask what is financial planning. A lot of people either don't have an idea of what financial planning is, so they think that it is for those in either pre-retirement or post-retirement who have built a fat salary and a lot of spare cash, and like this guy. And although we would love him as a client and people like him, it is just as important for those at the beginning of their career as well. Majority of young people live for the here and now, and I'm sure we'd all love to go back and live our 20s again, but for now we might have to do it vicariously through Christy. But financial planning can be even more valuable the younger you are. It's all about lifestyle. It's about the lifestyle you wish to lead now and the lifestyle you wish to lead in the future. And it's our role as advisors to educate and advise you along the way and to provide you the tools to make great financial decisions. So I want to talk to you about the story of Bazza and Shazza. They are both 21, and contrary to their names, they are pretty switched on, because Bazza started investing $100 per week into the share market when he was 21. He continues to do this until he's 30, so a total of 9 years. Total contribution over that period was $46,800. Shazza decides to live her 20s and go partying, but still starts at the age of 30. Invests $100 per week, the same as Bazza, and does that right up until age 65. Meanwhile, Bazza hasn't been contributing, but he has kept his money in the market, income being reinvested and rolling along for that period of time. So they both invest in the Australian share market. Average annual return over the last 30 years of the Australian share market is 9.6 per annum, and that's the market they're investing in for this illustration. At 65, who has more money? The person who contributed 46 or the person who contributed 187,000? Well, the answer is Bazza, because he started earlier. So Bazza invested $140,000 less than Shazza, but ended up with $500,000 more at his retirement age. Secondly, if Bazza had have continued those contributions up to 65 and hadn't stopped at age 30, he would have amassed $3.6 million. Not only that, but at age 52, his portfolio would have produced him a passive income without him working of about $50,000 a year. So that's a fairly high degree of financial independence at an age where you can't access your superannuation. The point is, you need to get your money working for you. You need to fit it into your budget to, as they say, pay yourself first. You need to put money aside for your future, and too many people don't. What would the impact of lower returns or high fees have on that illustration? Well, if Bazza had earned 2% less, or his fees perhaps were 2% higher, he would have ended up with over $1.1 million less, just a reduction of 2% in returns. So what are the common causes that I see, or that we as advisors see, for people getting weaker returns in their situation? One prime example is self-managed super fund clients who think they can do it better. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot can, and a lot do a really good job. But we see a lot of clients in our industry who will go to their accountant, or their accountant may come to them and say, set up a self-managed super fund. And they do it because they think they can save fees, or they think they can do it better than their current superannuation can. The problem is, all too often, these people will transfer their balance across to their self-managed super fund, and it stays in cash. They don't end up doing anything with it. Spoke before about 2% less in a reduction in returns and the impact that would have. Imagine if you were only earning 2%, which is effectively what cash pays. You're costing yourself hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the course of your life. And this is just about educating, sitting down with a client and educating them through the process of what they potentially should be doing. Another issue is overpriced investments or super funds which don't deliver. We see it a lot. We see prime examples, people will change employers, and the super fund that their employer had set up with them, once they leave, drops to a more retail version, which has higher fees, insurances cost more, and they don't get it reviewed at the time they leave their employment, which they should. And clients trying to time the market. There's been a lot of famous quotes about market timing, trying to get in when markets are low, out when markets are high before they drop. Warren Buffett, one of the most famous investors in the world, says the only value of stock forecasters is to make fortune tellers look good. Peter Lynch, one of the world's most famous fund managers, says far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections or anticipating corrections than the actual corrections themselves. So coming back to my example on Bazza and Shazza, it's about spending time in the market and not trying to time when you get in and out of the investments, because nobody gets that right. What are investment risks? Well, there are many. So it's important to always invest at a level you're comfortable with. I used an example before of 100% exposure to Australian shares. That is purely just an example. Majority of clients would not be invested at that high risk, albeit though some are. And it's not for everybody. You have to understand these risks. But for those with time on their side, the long term in mind, and are willing to ride the ups and downs, it can be a good investment. One thing I do when I sit down with my clients is I guarantee them, if they've got exposure to shares or property or anything like that, that at some point in the future, we'll be sitting there reviewing the fact that they've lost money. It's inevitable. But what we do, our clients understand the risks when they go in, and we know that we're investing for the longer term, not these short spaces of time. I proudly did not lose one client throughout the GFC, I actually gained more. And that's because I spoke to them throughout the process and didn't hide under my desk like other advisors may have. There was a famous day when the US stock market overnight for us dropped about 7 or 8%. My clients, 85% of my clients heard from me before 10 a.m, which is when the Australian market opens, anticipating a big drop on the markets that day. We don't day trade or anything like that, but it's just about being in the client's face when they want you to be, and that's when they want to hear from you. So it's also important, obviously, to diversify, make sure that you are spreading around your risk and investments, know what you are trying to achieve, know what the end goal is. There's no point adding too much risk to your situation if perhaps you don't need to. And understand the investment. If you don't understand the investment, or somebody can't explain it to you in a way that you understand it, don't do it. But financial planning is more than just investing. I could speak for an hour on every one of these individual topics, but these individual topics all encompass somebody's financial plan. Budgeting and cash flow is where it all starts. Go back to Bazza and Shazza, it's where it all started for them. You've heard me all bang on about superannuation in my 40 seconds. It's really important to review it and make sure it's working right for you. We've helped clients save tens of thousands of dollars in tax just by being in the right super fund for them, and not one that perhaps charges them capital gains tax every year even though they haven't sold anything. Self-employed people sometimes say that their business is their superannuation. I'm sure the taxi driver said that too. But the value of their business has been decimated. So it's important to have different pools of wealth and diversify where you're building your investments. Other ones in there, education funding has been popular, estate planning, tax planning, borrowing to invest through gearing, retirement planning, Centrelink, aged care, business succession. As I said, I could talk about an hour on each of these topics, but everything in there encompasses somebody's financial plan and is important. So, bread and butter referrals. Young people perhaps getting into their first home or starting their career and want to know what to do with their money. Perhaps starting a family and budgeting for education. And of course those that simply just wish to review their superannuation and make sure it's working right for them. Cream referrals is those perhaps that have gone through a major life event. Loss of a job, starting a new job, purchased or sold a major asset, or maybe they've had a loss in the family, or perhaps received an inheritance. These are the life events that we obviously need to involve with planning. And business owners, from the perspective of, what is their succession plan? There may be multiple entities in there and it can get confusing. Dream referrals is those that influence those people. So accountants, mortgage brokers, solicitors sit in front of these clients all the time. So it's important that we can connect with those organisations or people and help them with their clients and work with them in assisting their clients. So I'd like to thank you for listening today and hopefully catch up with all of you on a one-to-one and we can talk about all that in a bit more depth. Thanks.